Polly Higgins, ladies and gentlemen, is originally a barrister practicing in London. Polly Higgins now uses her legal skills, however, for just one client, namely the Earth. She has raised the notion of a new crime coined Ecocide, and working on implementing laws that prohibit the extensive damage, destruction, loss for human or non-human life, and is investigating how to prosecute on behalf of the planet. She's an educator, a writer, and she's listed on the top 100 of most inspiring women of the world. Meet the Earth's lawyer, ladies and gentlemen, Polly Higgins.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all. It's a real delight to be here today. This is not usually my natural forum. In fact, my background, as you heard, is as a barrister, a court advocate. So for me to be speaking to creatives today is, in one respect, very exciting. It opens me up to a very different way of engaging with my work. One of the reasons that I actually accepted the offer to come here was because I'm also here to ask for help and assistance from all of you as creatives. Now, you see, I don't have any slides. Actually, that's not the way I normally communicate. I normally communicate through words. That's what a lawyer does. And in fact, I was asked whether or not I would bring slides, and I thought long and hard about this and decided that, if anything, I'm inviting you to use your creativity that you have in your mind's eye to give vision about what I'm going to talk about. Because you see, this is the thing. I want to launch a global campaign, a campaign unlike any other. In fact, I want to go beyond campaigning. I've spent 7.5 years now advancing the law of ecocide, taking that forward into many different forums across the world, but I haven't been campaigning. I actually don't really know how to campaign. I know how to deal with law, but I don't really know how to campaign. But I don't know if that really matters, because there are so many individuals out there that can help me on this, and there's so many creatives. And anyway, the thing is, what I do see from campaigning doesn't satisfy me. I want more. I want something that really speaks to the greatness of this mission. And I'm calling it a mission, not a campaign. So what is the backstory of this, if you like? Well, my starting point, if you like, was really one of those wake-up calls when I was in court in the Royal Courts of Justice in London. And I found myself looking out of the window thinking the Earth is in need of a good lawyer. And that was a thought that didn't leave me. It didn't leave me that day, and it crystallized into a question. And the question was, how do we create a legal duty of care for the Earth? Now, my background in law is as a commercial lawyer, not as an environmental lawyer. Here I was representing transnational corporations in court. Individuals, CEOs, whom I got on well with. But I began to ask the question, how is it that so many of these companies are making a lot of money out of dangerous industrial activity? Out of activity that is causing significant adverse impact to the environment. And that one question, how do we create a legal duty of care, started me on my quest. And as it was explained to me many years later, if you're on a quest, you have to ask a question. Now, that journey has taken me to here where I am now, which is actually nearly 12 years on. And it was just under 8 years ago when I was at the climate negotiations in Copenhagen. I was legally advising into that process, when someone in the audience asked a question: how do we find new language to deal with this mass damage and destruction? And I found myself thinking, you know, it's like genocide. Only it's Ecocide. Wow, that should be a crime. Why is this not a crime? And what I did was I subjected the idea to rigorous legal scrutiny. I went down that rabbit hole of intense inquiry. And I came up after 3 months and realized that, in fact, what I discovered was this was missing law as an international crime to stand alongside genocide and war crimes, crimes against humanity. But more than that, I actually found that I could draft what that missing law required. And after talking to other lawyers, I understood that what I was putting together was a law that fundamentally could change everything. Now, that journey 8 years ago, I had no idea where it would take me. Now it's at the point that there are a number of countries that really are significantly engaging in this proposal. But the reason they're engaging in it is not just because of the ecosystem destruction that ecological ecocide is about, which is largely state and corporate ecocide. So think, for instance, heavy extractive industry, mining practices, anything that causes significant adverse impact. But it's a second type of ecocide, and that's climate ecocide. That's the rising sea levels, the tsunamis, the floods, the cyclones. If you look at the Earth, go around the equatorial belt, and you will see all the small island developing states, 54 of them, in fact. They are quite literally on the front line of climate change. They are the most adversely impacted by climate ecocide. So how does that fit in with the law? Well, what we can do is we can create a legal duty of care to give assistance. A legal duty of care to ensure that the dangerous industrial activity is prohibited. Now, I'm not anti-corporations, not at all. What I have my beef with, if you like, what I take issue with, is that which causes significant harm. In fact, if anything, this is very much pro-industry. It's very much about innovation in the other direction. It's very much about how we accelerate and implement something very different from what we have today. And this is a law that can work. We know that. We've road tested it. We held a mock ecocide trial in the UK Supreme Court. But here's the thing. Those states that most require this law, that are engaging with this, they are adversely impacted, yes, by climate change, but there is another form of adverse impact that's happening. They have very little money. That's why they're called small island developing states. So here we have a law that can actually meet a requirement, if you will. But those countries that most require this law do not have the finance to come to this very country here in The Hague to actually call upon the International Criminal Court to put it in place. There are 124 countries that are signatories to the Rome Statute. That is possibly the most important legal document in the world, and that's the document that governs the International Criminal Court here in The Hague. Out of those 124 countries, there are 23 small island developing states. For any one of them to come and participate at the annual event, the Assembly of State Parties, which happens in December, costs around £50,000 to £60,000. To you and me, that really isn't very much, but to them, that's a lot of money. When you've had a cyclone, that could mean relocation and rehousing of over 400 people. Where do you put your money? Do you put it in dealing with the immediate emergency? Or do you put it into a law that will help future generations further down the line? In fact, how do you justify that to your own people? Sorry, we're not going to help you here at home because we're going to another continent to try and get a law in place with money we barely have. So here's my thinking. I think there is a huge campaign to roll out here, a global mission, if you will, to assist. We have so many tools to hand now that we didn't even have 15 years ago. We have Facebook, we have Twitter, we can crowdfund, which is really fantastic, and they can be brought to use to help assist here. And there are a number of different individuals and organizations, and indeed a bank, who have already said they will help. Triodos Foundation have very kindly set up a bank account without any charges so that we can crowdfund for this. But a crowdfunding is not enough. How do we tell an epic David and Goliath story? How do we actually explain against the odds the small guys can actually put in place the law that's required? And we help finance that. How do we explain that, in fact, civil society, those who really care about what's happening to the planet, will help finance this? How do we create something that allows people to participate and engage creatively and proactively, and not just through the funding? That's gifting of one kind, but gifting in many different ways, gifting of skills, of talents, of time, of energy. How do we engage and participate in something that allows us all to come together and really change history by putting in place one law that will help not just us in our lifetimes, but many, many others that are yet to come behind us? I don't know really the answer to that, but what I do see is that there's a match here that can happen. There's the potential to do something really great, and there are the countries that want to move forward with this law. Now, this is very exciting for me, and I'm trying to envisage what that would look like. I'm not sure exactly how to do this. We had an activation session earlier today, which was really fantastic. I think we had 50 people who came to that activation session, and I've come away with huge ideas, which tonight I'm going to spend time mapping out to look at. But in a way, I'm slightly out of my depth, because this is not my skill base. I don't really know how to do this. And really, I'm here asking for help and assistance. Because here's the thing. I don't think it's one lawyer that will make the difference here. I don't think it's one creative agency. I've spoken to many international agencies, creative agencies, and it wasn't quite good enough, the ones that I spoke to, what they came up with. I'm looking for something that's epic, that's global, that speaks to the greatness of humanity coming together at a time of great emergency. Because this is the thing, an emergency is just a state of emergence, the potential for something new to emerge here. And maybe there's a way of pulling together the best designers, the best creatives, to do something that's never been done before, that speaks to that epicness of the challenge that's having to be met here. How on earth do these small island developing states take this law forward into the International Criminal Court? Well, I know the legal route. Yes, that's one thing. We know, in part, what's missing, but I don't think it's enough for someone to come along and write out a check. We've number crunched on it. We think it's round about an £8 million exercise. But unlike a normal campaign, this is not something that happens by, say, December 2017. We think it's going to be 3.5 years in the making. So by the end of 2020, there's the potential to actually put this in place if we dare to really take this big leap. It is a David and Goliath story, because in a way what we're doing is we're actually reshaping the way we wish to engage with our planet. It's a legacy issue, if you will. How we, civil society, choose the law we want to put in place. That's never been done before. But I think now, unlike any other time in history, we have the potential to do this. What happens when a bunch of creatives come together? You've had all of yesterday and today. It leaves you inspired, engaged, to go away, new ideas, motivated, empowered. That's the dynamic energy I want to bring into this mission. You know, it's so easy to message climate change as a disaster. But what I've discovered talking to some of the international creative agencies in the world, it's actually a real challenge to creatively message a positive message. However, we do know that positive messages work. Behavioral science now tells us that a positive message, the uptake is exponentially higher than one that turns you off. So how do we take something like this forward? A huge solution in law, yes. It's about accountability for our governments, for our corporations, but also invite them to come on board in this. Invite them to be the rebels, if you will. There's something here that I can't quite manage to identify, but it's an intangible element, the magic to bring into being, to create something that goes beyond a typical cause and a typical campaign. Because imagine this, if you will. If we were to step into the future 200 years hence and be able to look back in time to this very day in the 21st century and say that's where it all began. In this room, certain people heard the call and they stood up and said, yes, I'm happy and I'm prepared and I really want to see how we can make this happen, how we can put this law in place. Now, some people say to me, this is ridiculous, this will never happen. But we won't know until we give it our best shot. The political will is there, but the assistance that's required to take it to a whole new level, that's what I'm calling in. So I'd like to leave you with this one last thing. And it's a story. It's a story about a friend of mine. He did something truly courageous that really helped shape the way I operate. He's a guy, he used to work for an awful lot of money in the City of London. He was called Steve. He doesn't even carry a name anymore. And Steve decided one day as a stockbroker that he no longer wanted to do what he was doing because, you know what? It seemed really pointless. And so he decided he was going to take a sabbatical to try and work out what he could do in life that would really make a difference. And the thing was, the bank that he was working for in the City of London said, we don't want to lose you, so we're going to pay you a lot of money to stay. And he said, no, I'm going to take 6 months out. I'm going to go to Switzerland and I'm going to go skiing. They said, okay, fine, we'll pay you full time to do this, which is great. So he went off to Switzerland to go skiing. And he arrived in Switzerland, started skiing, and after a few weeks, he decided, you know, I don't want to stay in my expensive hotel. I want to be on the mountain. So he checked out of the hotel, he bought himself a tent, and he went up the mountain, and he decided he'd live in the tent and go skiing from there. After a few days, he decided this wasn't enough. And what he decided to do is really very remarkable. He decided that he wanted to be the mountain. So he took off his shoes. Now, 11 years later, he's been on his journey, pretty much the same journey as I'm on, only he's far braver than I am. He's still not wearing shoes. And he lives off the land. And when I first met him years ago, I said, wow, how long did it take you to acclimatize? And he said, oh, just 3 months. 3 months? For me, 3 minutes, I think I would have wanted to have been in a hot bath. 3 months, he walked on snow barefoot. Now he walks barefoot in all weathers. And he explained that it's me that's become de-acclimatized. It's me that's become, if you like, institutionalized. And I asked him, why are you doing this? And he says, because I'm an earth walker. And I walk the earth, and anyone I meet, I talk to them about why I care for the earth. And I hope that maybe one person or another will come on board and take my story and take it further on and help change their lives. What he's looking for is for us to de-acclimatize from how we numb out from what's happening to this earth, from how it's so easy to sit back and say, well, you know, it'll happen to someone else. They're over there, they're in, you know, those countries that are sinking. He wants us to actually connect deep with the earth. And that, for me, profoundly moved me. That sense of how one person decided to change their life and really align with what they're doing. They're being and they're doing so aligned. And he has complete freedom in this world now. He's given away his money. He's given away his name. He just lives on the land, on the earth, walking. So here's my ask to you. I'm seeking for that inspiration, just as Stephen gave me that inspiration to boldly walk forward in what I'm doing. I can't do it quite with the same courage that he does it without shoes every day. But I think each and every one of us has the capacity to be great in whatever way that is. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Polly Higgins. Polly, a few questions. I'm going to kick it off. As you know, we're writing a manifesto. So what would your line be if you could add it to the manifesto that is now set in stone, but as a little appendix, how would you boil it down to one sentence, your marvelous plea?
Oh, my. You know, I think it maybe comes down to this. This is what keeps on coming back to me. Dare to be great. Dare to be great. Dare to be great. This is what I'm asking politicians to do. This is what I'm asking ministers to do, ambassadors that I meet across the world. I'm daring them to be great. This is a legacy issue. So I'm inviting everyone who is involved in this to dare to be great. Yeah.
I have no further questions. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's so rounded. Thank you. Is that correct or not?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
And we're good?
I think they're all completely gobsmacked.
Yeah?
Oh, no, you have one.
Hey!
Just enough.
Hold on, guys. One question from our Climate Council.
Yeah, just to know if you can share with us your mail, how can we support and follow your fight, please?
Well, thank you. You know, it's not a fight. Yeah. This is, again, for me, it's words, you know. This is a mission. So I invite you, if you wish to join my mission. The website, which is a very old, creaking WordPress portal, is eradicatingecocide.com. Put your email in there. You know, there's a newsletter that goes out at sort of 4 o'clock in the morning when I have a point in time to do it. But also, we have, you know, a team here, Katie, who's sitting there. Katie, maybe you can stand up. Katie's based here in the Netherlands, and we want to set up, heart quarters, if you like, here in the Netherlands as well as in the UK. So if anyone would want to talk to either myself or Katie afterwards, that would be really great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Polly Higgins.
Thank you very much. Thank you.